All right, so in today's video for exotic car hacks, I decided to literally do a video on understanding exotic car hacks, what it really is, how it really works, and why is it so different than everything else on the internet? But more importantly, why are so many people trying to copycat us? Well, to understand exotic car hacks, we have to kind of understand how far back does this really go and why am I teaching this on the internet? So let's take a moment and look at when did this all start? Well, when I was roughly about 19 years old, I had bought myself a bunch of cars, and like everyone else, I had lost a bunch of money. So therefore, lost money meant I wasn't happy, especially because I had a job, I was hardworking, and I earned my money, and it wasn't as much money as I have today, but nonetheless, it was a lot of money to me. So as I earned my money and kept losing it on cars, I got pretty frustrated. I bought an E55 AMG, you ready for this? And I lost $18,000 in 1 week. And that bothered me a lot. So much, as a matter of fact, that I took that loss and I didn't whine about it. It was just part of life. And I decided that, you know what? I don't want this car anymore. I don't care. And I decided to buy myself, if I was going to lose money every time, my dream car, which was a 911 Turbo. And when I bought it, I knew nothing about hacking or anything else, but when I did buy that car specifically, it gave me the opportunity to drive at least my favorite and most wanted exotic car of all time. What I believed I could afford, my dream car was right there and then. It was a 996, and I ended up buying it after fighting for it for 3 years and saving my money. And what happened, of course I didn't buy it cash at the time I financed it, and what happened is I drove it 2 years. And in the 2 years, I owned it. The 2 full years, I made a lot of friends. I loved the experience. I modded it. I did so much to it. And you know what happened after the full 2 years? I decided I was going to take a stab at a Lamborghini, but something more incredible happened is I was expecting to lose $15,000, $20,000, maybe even $40,000. Remember, I had lost $18,000 in 1 week. It didn't make sense to not lose a significantly more amount of money. The car was twice the price of a previous car. And more importantly, I had kept it 2 years. Depreciation, all these things were factored in. And I was like, I'm going to get crushed. I had added 6,000 miles to the car, which was a lot. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to get crushed. And you know what happened? This was pretty incredible to me. I lost, you ready for this? You ready? $3,000, despite all the mods. And something really interesting happened. It triggered me to see that there was something that was different about this car than this car. And when I did the math, I realized that it cost me almost nothing to drive a 911 Turbo for 2 years versus cost me $18,000 to drive an E55 for a week. So seeing that kind of comparison, I decided to test it again, and there came a Lambo Gallardo 6-speed gated. At the time, 6-speed gated were not that popular of cars. The gated system was not like something that people knew was going away because plenty of cars were offered that way. So I bought a Lamborghini Gallardo 6-speed and I drove it, and then something incredible happened. Now I made over $10,000 driving it for 3 months. And something pretty exciting happened. First off, it was pretty exciting to make $10,000 with something outside of work. So I thought this was pretty interesting and exciting. But also I realized that the more expensive the cars, the less they follow this normal depreciation schedule that luxury and more commonly produced cars are. So exotic cars, which at the time were a lot less units than they are today, were still becoming a scarcity that was pretty exciting, and people were willing to pay more. And they also weren't nagging, and I didn't have to trade them, and they sold pretty fast compared to luxury cars. So I was like, wow, something is going on here. I'm learning something new, something that's just different and exciting, right? So after I spent years in banking and I understood everything there is to know about lending or everything else, something pretty interesting happened, right? And what happened is I got fired from my banking career. So I had about 8 years of banking experience. And that was a lot, because I understood a lot and I got promoted a lot during those years. So I had a pretty good salary. This wasn't like I was a teller or manager. I had quite a lot of very high-end banking experience. And when I got fired from my banking job, something really interesting happened. I had a passion for cars. So my passion obviously was cars. Like, it was exotic cars, it was high-end cars, it was modified cars. So I had a passion for cars and I had 8 years of banking. So I decided to basically combine these things together and form my first company in Virginia called VIP Motoring. Now, remember, this was in 2005. And in 2005, this basically gave me access to this huge opportunity to creating a business that not only modified cars, not only built up some of the coolest cars out there, but did something incredible, enabled people to buy exotic cars and more importantly, invest in them. At a time when people were still looking at cars as one of the biggest liabilities in their entire portfolio of items, I was looking to investing in cars and helping others do that. Now, between 2005 and all the way to 2010, that company flourished heavily. I mean, heavily. And so during that time, I did quite well and started building quite a bit of wealth personally. But something pretty incredible happened in 2008. I took a fascination with the internet. And you see, in 2008, I started and launched a new company called Secret Entourage. And this company basically enabled education in the online space. Now, we weren't talking about cars at the time. In 2009, I tested something which was literally to take this VIP motoring concept here and teach it online. Now, why did I choose to do this? It was very successful for my very wealthy clients, but it was a fragmented ownership / investment model. And they were asking me, how do I buy my very first exotic, like my 430 Ferrari? How do I buy that and literally drive it without losing money or invest in it rather than make money with your system? This was an interesting theory because they were asking me basically, how do I do what you were doing back in the day with that Lamborghini or 911? And the answer was quite simple. I was going to teach them how to do it themselves. So what I did is at this time in 2008, I'd already started teaching online and I had learned how to create ebooks. And so I decided in 2009 that I was going to create an ebook right here of this entire process, of the VIP motoring process. And at the time, I called it Exotic Car Secrets. So that Exotic Car Secret ebook was just $49 and it was sold internally here in 2009. It wasn't really sold on the internet, but I decided, you know what, why not combine it with Secret Entourage in 2010? So in 2010, I basically combined my teaching and this particular concept here to create this Exotic Car Secret, which at the time was an ebook plus course for $49. Now, it was certainly not as extensive as it is today, but it got a lot of attention. And more importantly, it got a lot of attention. And even back then, I started another book called TikTok, where I would teach people how to flip watches. So these two ebooks and courses for just $49 were very basic in nature, but in a very early stage. We're talking about 12 years ago, right? And again, this is the overnight success story people aren't talking about, right? So 12 years ago, a $49 ebook and course, which was done literally as a manual internally for VIP motoring, turned into what today is Exotic Car Hacks, but there's a lot to unpack in between then. So this occurred, and over the maybe 2-year period between 2010 and 2012, we got over 1,500 people to basically participate in this ebook. You know, that basically was teaching them the very basics of what Exotic Car Hacks teaches today. Like just a surface level, 10-page ebook, very small video presentation. And again, we're talking about 1,500 people purchased this. So this exciting model enabled me to really realize, wow, people really enjoy this information and no one else is talking about this. So since 2010, I literally decided to invest time and really make this into an entire model. Instead of like taking just this little ebook and saying 10 pages, I took the entire VIP motoring playbook and turned it into this platform known as Exotic Car Hacks. So we continued in about 2012. It was about 2012 when we started really the Exotic Car Hacks model. At the time, it was called Car Conspiracy when we launched the platform itself. Car Conspiracy then evolved in 2014 into Exotic Car Hacks. So while on the surface it looks like Exotic Car Hacks has been around for 6 full years, really it has been around for quite some time, as you can see, because it's dating back to 2005. So all of this, fast forward all of this to later, in 2014, Exotic Car Hacks launched, and one of the big differences between what Exotic Car Hacks was and what people expected it to be was that individuals believed that Exotic Car Hacks was about flipping exotic cars, and that it couldn't have been further from the truth. You see, my belief has always been that you can flip anything. You can buy something low and sell it high. But remember that there are 3 key things you're against when you're flipping cars. The first one is dealerships. because you have to pay taxes, right? So that's the first kind of problem, is that most people have to pay taxes when they register a car. So that's going to kill your type of flip, right? And you're not a dealership or don't have a deal license, so that takes an issue. The second thing you have to understand when dealing with cars specifically is you have depreciation. So the longer you hold something, the more likely it is to go down, right? So again, that's going to hurt you. Then you have the cost of insurance. And in most cases, insurance could be quite expensive, right? Like, that's a problem too. And then you have the cost of repairs. Remember, in the 90s, exotics didn't have the best reputation for being very reliable cars. They would constantly break down, or so we were told. So you have all of these four things basically going against you when it comes to getting in and out of cars by just looking at it as a flip or an opportunity to make money. But my model was very different because, remember, it started at VIP Motoring as an opportunity not to flip stuff and make money, but rather own something, drive it for a duration of time, just like my Porsche and Gallardo, and literally get out without losing much money. Because remember, I gave you that example. We're talking about a heavy amount of money, like $18,000 in 1 week, versus we're talking about, $3,000 in 2 years. Now, if you take $18,000 in 1 week, that's 18 grand loss. If you take $3,000 in 2 years, that's like nothing, because you're talking about dividing it by 24, which is ridiculously low, right? It doesn't even make sense. It's basically like losing $100 a month to drive a $200,000 car. It doesn't make sense to the common individual who thinks inside the box. But when we start to look at it from outside the box, then things start to look different. So what does that mean? Well, first off, there are legal ways to avoid paying taxes on cars. There are legal ways, not illegal ways, legal ways. We're not talking about flipping titles and so on and so forth. And there's also opportunities to use this thing called a dealership in order to help with that process. There are very intelligent opportunities to avoid depreciation by picking the right cars, because not all cars are created equal. Remember what we saw about the AMG versus the 911. So it's not just saying buy any 911, it's understanding which 911s go up, which ones go down, and which ones are stable. Understanding the right cars enables some incredible opportunities to overcome depreciation. Now, insurance also matters significantly, and here's why. On the surface, you may think to yourself, well, because it's so much more expensive than the car I drive today, it must cost a lot more to insure, but it couldn't be further from the truth. Insurance companies have specialty insurance, not all of them, but the ones that the ones we share at Exotic Car Hacks in our resource center for exotic cars. So you could have, like I had a Ford GT that was $400 every 6 months. This was, at the time I got it, a $300,000 car, right? Now I've had Lamborghinis that were $1,100 every 12 months. And I've had other Lamborghinis that were $1,400 every 6 months. Now, here's the interesting part. All of them were the same dollar. The only difference, again, was the car. So understanding how to insure and which cars to buy, again, will create a very different insurance opportunity, or should I say insurance cost, depending on the car. So the argument is there are individuals who care about this and who can pick the right cars, again, going back to picking the right cars. Now, then comes repairs. There are processes in place today that didn't exist in the 90s. There are shops available today that didn't exist in the 90s. And cars today are built by manufacturers such as Volkswagen Group owns 90% of other cars on the market. So these cars also can literally be repaired for pennies on the dollar by just about anybody. Long gone are the days where you needed a very specialty computer to literally look inside a Porsche, or nobody could take the undershield off because the motor was in the back. That stuff is now gone. Everybody has those tools, and it's very easy to fix these cars. You could literally find shops that fix cars at a fraction, and I mean fraction of what it costs to literally do repairs on a normal car. So I'll give you an example. When Bugatti came out with the Veyron, this was a very expensive car because it was a new to market concept. And the Veyron had 10K plus oil service and 40K plus tires. Think about that. How crazy is that for your dream final car, the biggest, baddest car you can own on the planet, to basically cost you 50K a year without doing anything? That's crazy. That just doesn't make any sense. But the new Chiron, which is the new version of the Veyron, has $1,500 oil service and has 10K tires. This transition for Bugatti between the two cars took less than 5 years. So my argument here is that if you think about repairs, on all fronts, from Lamborghini to Ferrari to everything else, these obstacles have been broken. No longer are you paying $7,000 for a clutch because all cars have basically lifetime clutches because we have dual clutch transmissions. At the time in the 90s, we didn't. So a lot of the myths that exist today about specifically like what cars are breaking down, what cars are not, and how much does it cost are old myths that have circulated the internet for decades. And so we've been able to undo all these myths and, more importantly, break down for you these transitions so you understand which cars you want to go for if costs or repairs are important. But we've also created proprietary methodology around repairs to allow you to ensure you're buying, again, the right cars at the right dollar, including future expenses. Yes, we can actually predict that through those proprietary strategies we teach you right here at Exotic Car Hacks. So this is the ideology of Exotic Car Hacks, which is not to flip a car, but it is rather to pick the right cars, enable yourself to drive them for a duration of time, and lower your cost of ownership per month. So simply put, let's say you bought that Mercedes I bought and you lost $18,000 in 1 week. That's very possible. And why you lost that is because you drove that $18,000 was the margin the dealer made and you weren't educated. You thought you got a good deal because you looked on AutoTrader. You thought you were buying the lowest car. When you bought that car, it cost you $5,000 in repairs or in maintenance over 2 years, right? Now you lost this in depreciation right away. You could have also paid somewhere around $1,000 every 6 months for insurance, right? So these are more typical concepts of exotic car ownership that most people go through. What we teach you is if we can take that 18,000 number and get rid of it, if we can talk about and look at the future of this repairs and get rid of it, then a very different experience takes place. If you buy a $100,000 car, even if it costs you $2,000 a month, right? This is a different type of scenario, but let's just take that as an example. Now you're paying $2,000 times 24, right? So basically you've paid roughly about $2,000 times 12. So that's 10, that's 20,000, 24,000, so 48,000. That's $48,000 you've paid towards your car payment, but your note actually came down roughly 60 grand. So now you owe 60,000 at the time you sell your car and you made 40,000 in payments, right? This, simply put, would scare people because the way we've been trained to things that the $2,000 a month right here, that's the scary part. I don't know if I can afford that. What if I lose that? Oh my God, that's terrible. It's a lot of money. What we're not thinking about is that if in 24 months you sell this car for, let's say, even at a loss and sell it for 96,000, well, this is a big deal because you only owe 60,000. So that means that 36,000 is in cash in your pocket, right? And while you thought in your head that you lost the 2 grand every time and you lost the 48,000, that's not true. Remember, that money, 36,000 of it has now been saved literally in a separate pocket account you don't see. Because when you sell your car, you get that back. So 2 things are happening. The first one is you can now put 36,000 down in your next car, or you just saved yourself 36,000. The real loss of this that I want to point out here is the difference between these 2 numbers. Remember, you're losing $4,000, but you paid 48,000 because there was some interest in that. So the real difference here is you lost a total of $12,000 in 24 months. Which means, this is pretty interesting, that in 24 months in the 2-year period, right, you basically lost about $500 a month driving a $100,000 Lamborghini. Now here's the argument. You can rent a car for $1,500 a weekend, or usually like $800 a day. I'm telling you that you just drove a $100,000 Lamborghini for $500 a month. That is the lease on a Volkswagen Passat. And that is including the interest you're losing on the loan. So now, why is this important? Well, it's very important because most people believe that exotic car ownership is out of reach. They believe that exotic car ownership is so expensive that they'll never reach it unless they work 10 years and pay for it cash. Today, banks have more opportunity to finance exotics than ever before. Repair shops have more opportunities to fix them for cheap than ever before. Insurance companies have more programs to insure them than ever before. And more importantly, picking the right car matters. So there's a couple of reasons why that is. Experience matters. Meaning we want you to have a good experience driving an exotic car for 2 reasons. Because life is too boring to drive boring cars, right? It's too short to drive boring cars. And secondly, very important is to understand that experience matters because you're going to network, you're going to raise your standards, you're going to remove your limitations. I mean, imagine what it does for you if you drive a Lamborghini by 22. Imagine how far you'll go by, let's say 40, maybe a Bugatti or something, who knows. Remove your limitations, forgive my shitty handwriting, and more importantly, continue to push the envelope each and every year, knowing that you're not just buying a car to lose $18,000 in a week, you're buying the right car at the right time, and not only forecasting and getting ahead, but understanding how to use all that to get your life to improve 10,000%. So where does ECH, Exotic Car Hacks, or so we call it ECH, comes in? Well, very simply, we give you a 6 to 7 hour course. Yes, there's an actual course, believe it or not, that's what I do, I teach people, on how to do this exactly, how to pick the right cars. We give you specific buyer's guides on every exotic we talk about so that you know exactly what to look for, what year, what colors, what options, etc., to again come back to picking the right car. We give you access to our resources, which are everything that have accumulated over 20 years, every repair shop across the US, even in other countries, including everything from lenders to best insurance companies to how to even fix your credit if you have terrible credit. So we give you all of that so you don't have to go seeking it somewhere else on the internet. And then we give you the greatest thing we've ever invented. Our community, well, I shouldn't say invented, we literally built it, of 20,000 plus incredible car hackers who are all there to help you, because one of the greatest concepts of doing this is that there's a continuous flow of information that is constantly flowing through the industry. And we give you access to that information through our community because we have so many people that is continuously updated over and over with people asking questions, participating. And trust me when I say this, I am far from the only expert hacker in the community. There are people now in our community that have also been doing this for 7-8 years, because remember, we go way back. And while we have a lot of copycats on the internet, we have a lot of guys right now with their own like starting to put up their own courses or starting to talk about this on YouTube. Put it this way, we've been doing this for 10 plus years, so we have 10 plus years of data and continuity. These new guys are stealing our email structures to try to convince you to join their course. That should tell you how amateurish they are in their exposure to even understanding what we do, that they can't even come up with an email template and rather just copy ours. So if someone can't come up with an email to convince you of what they know that others don't know, it's because they've learned everything we teach right here at Exotic Car Hacks and thought, hey, I can do this too. So here is the reality of it. There is no substitute for Exotic Car Hacks. I am literally the guy that invented, this isn't a joke, how to invest in exotic cars. And I am teaching you this on the internet for over a decade. So that's right, it's not an overnight story. But I have a very incredibly precise continuity strategy on ensuring that you just don't think you can buy any car and just make it work as a hack. It's not what car hacking is. It's an opportunity to change your mindset from consumerism to investorism and literally push yourself to the next level of how you think about finance. And yes, this 6 to 7 hour course is updated. You ready for this? Once a year, and it's completely free. So you don't need to get a new course every year. It's literally updated for you, completely free once a year, just to ensure you get up-to-date continuity in information. Our buyer's guides, one new one every month for every new car that comes on the market that could be hacked with our model. And our constant resources updated daily to ensure you have all you need. So regardless that you're hacking with us in the group or you're hacking with us on the internet right here on YouTube and just learning, make sure you take the training right here in the description and learn everything you need to about what exactly car hacking is and how anyone can get started, because you could be in an exotic car for as little as $300 a month. And you need to learn why that makes sense, especially when I just showed you an example of have a Lamborghini could cost you $500 a month. So you could do that, and you need to learn the basics. So if you don't have a couple of $100 to join the community yet, you can definitely take that free training in the description. And more importantly, you can take the full Exotic Car Hacks course by also clicking the link and joining us during this holiday sale and literally getting access to this and so many more resources for such a low price that it's just stupid not to. So again, guys, stop falling for imitation amateurs and individuals who think having cool gimmicks on YouTube gives them the authority to teach you how to do this, because they haven't invested 20 million plus of their own money in their own exotic cars, like I have literally in the last 2 years, about 20 million plus of my own cars with my own money, and to just be able to show you exactly how you don't or lose money. There are other guys that are talking about speculation or looking at the internet, trying to figure out what we have figured out here, but through trial and error, and more importantly, putting our money on the line. Money they've never made, money they'll never have. Well, there you have it for Exotic Car Hacks, and I'll catch you next time. And again, click the link, but make sure you like, subscribe, turn on notifications for future updates and incredible new videos at Exotic Car Hacks. Take care, guys.